I hope I prepared it all in English. If you have any questions, don't ask. Wait only till the end of my... Wait only until I finish everything. You'll know when I'm finished. And then you could ask whatever you want, okay? I'm going to be talking about my family. First of all, when I think of my earliest memories, I don't know if you can remember your earliest memories. Unfortunately, what I think of is not my mother's smile or my father's hug. The first thing I remember when I was a child was a growl coming out of my stomach due to hunger. It wasn't every morning because my mother did her best to put breakfast on the table for four children. But too often we went to school hungry. It all began back in Odessa, which is in Russia, Belarusia. When my parents, who had good jobs, they decided to quit their job and take us 4 children and leave their home in Odessa. Why? Because there had been anti-Semitic acts many years before the Nazis. Pogroms, it was called. And they felt that we didn't have any future in Odessa. And they had dreamt about going on the ship to America, which many Jews at that time did. So they said goodbye to their own parents, they said goodbye to their brothers, sisters, friends. They quit their jobs, they sold their belongings so they would have tickets for us to board the ship and go to America. I remember traveling by train a bit, but the big memory was when we approached the port in Hamburg in Germany. And going toward the port, we saw a big ship, and we knew that was the ship that was going to take us to the promised land of America. The morning of the trip, we all boarded the ship, and there was one more examination. There were doctors and nurses to make sure we didn't have things like corona, no contagious diseases. They still they did back then, and they still do it today. I remember seeing my older sister, Susie, with tears in her eyes, and she had like a sniffly nose. As the doctor examined Susie, he called another doctor over. And they consulted with themselves, and they examined her carefully. Then one of the doctors turned to my parents and said, "I'm very sorry. This little girl won't be able to go anywhere. She has the measles." Measles was a contagious disease. Today, if somebody has the measles, they give them a shot, and within a couple hours, they're okay. But back then, there was no such progress. As soon as my parents heard the word that they're not going to be able to board the ship, they realized their whole dream had just exploded. Instead of going to the new world of America, they were stuck in the old world of Germany, where they didn't know anybody, no friends, no family, and maybe worst of all, no language. They didn't speak German. They had no choice. They had to sell their tickets in order to find place for their family to sleep. Eventually, they found a place to buy outside of the city of Munich, in the poorest area, because that's all they can afford. Unfortunately, it was very far from the Jewish neighborhood. There were quite a few Jews living in Munich, but the neighborhood where they found the house, the apartment, there was no Jews around at all. Besides, my mother was too proud to ask others for help. Meanwhile, the summer passed, and I quickly picked up German because of the children. We were just playing outside, and I learned to speak German without a Russian accent. And I was all excited to go to the first day of school, because I was very young, so I was still excited about going to school. I remember the teacher calling out our names. We sat in the classroom like you are sitting now. He came to my name and he said, "Are you a Jew?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, actually, I don't remember what he said. All I remember is that was the first time he called me by my name, and that was the last time he called me by my full name. For the rest of the year, he just called me a Yud, Yudin, Yid, the Jew. Needless to say, I was the only Jew in the class, and I think in the entire school, because it wasn't a Jewish neighborhood. The kids picked up on that. It turned out the teacher had a reason for it. He was in the army as a soldier in the World War I, and he had blinded in his eye. And for some reason, he blamed the Jews for that. When it came to the breaks, hafsakot, the children would run after me. Not all of them, but some of them. They just screamed, "Jew, Jew, Jew, Jew. Why did you kill Jesus Christ?" I said, I didn't kill him. I didn't even know he was alive. That didn't help much. They would run after me and throw stones, and I would run home. I learned to be a very fast runner. At home, life wasn't much better. At home, my parents were still not able to find work. And my mother felt a lot of responsibility for little children. Every day she had to scrounge up some food somewhere. And one day, a dark day in the winter, cold, she was so much in despair, so much in depression, that she went into the kitchen, turned on the gas oven, closed the windows, and she waited for the worst. Fortunately, neighbors went by, and they smelt the gas somehow, and they saved her. Not only that, it turned out to be a turning point for our family, for the better, because they heard of my family's poverty. And after that, the women in the neighborhood brought sewing for my mother to sew dresses, and they'd pay her, of course. And even better, they found a job for my father in a factory, a large factory, a job that he had for several years. In other words, life started getting much better for our family. As life got better, ironically, the political atmosphere got a little worse, because in the same city of Munich began a group of old soldiers and people, citizens complaining, and they turned into a political party that was eventually called the Nazis. They started as a small group. They had a charismatic leader, Hitler, and he was responsible for, I won't go into the history, I'm sure you learned that. But as far as we felt it. How did we feel it? So they started passing laws. No, we couldn't go into the swimming pool. No Jews allowed in the park. Everything was being banned. It wasn't done suddenly. It was done every couple months. And then the worst thing I remember, is they would take piles of books, mostly written by Jews, but also liberal communist authors that they were against, and they'd burn them. I'm sure you heard that too. It was about that time that my mother was able to get enough money, together with my older brother Bernard, and they bought a store also in the center of Munich. And at one point, life was getting better, but there was a lot of pressure on our Christian neighbors not to buy from Jews, not to buy from any Jews. Don't go into the Jewish stores. It wasn't a law, but it was pressured. The next turn of events was on November 9th, which is a famous day today in history, in Jewish history, because that was the night, what they call Leila B'dolach, Kristallnacht. I remember it because I was cleaning up my parents' store, and it was getting dark, and my brother had warned me not to stay late. He said the Nazis were up to some trouble. I didn't know quite why, and he explained to me that a couple days before, a young Jew in France, walked into the embassy of Germany, and he killed a German official. And that was an excuse that Hitler looked for to try to get the population against the Jews in the country. Even though the Nazis in their propaganda, they blamed the Jews for practically everything, we were only 1% of the entire population of the country were Jews. But he needed what they call scapegoats, somebody to blame, groups to blame, and the Jews were the number one group that he blamed for all the troubles. He looked upon this assassination as a way to getting masses against the Jews. And I was in the store. I hear shouting up in front. It was on the main street in Munich. I hear shouting, and I couldn't understand at first what they were saying. And then I understood, which was unfortunate because I heard them yelling, "Kill the Jews! Kill the Jews!" I looked around. I was the only one. I guess they meant me. Then they started throwing stones at the windows, rocks. And I didn't even think anymore. I just went out the door, and like a miracle, they were so busy with their commotion, nobody paid attention, that I just went out the side. First thing I did was run to a telephone and call my brother at home. When he went home, he understood that there was real trouble, because even then there were trucks, loads of Nazis driving, and they were looking for any Jewish males, not the women, just the men, and they piled them up into the trucks to take them to police stations, and from there, some of them went to concentration camps. We didn't know what to do. My brother took our father together with his car, and he met us at a police station. It sounds crazy that we'd go into a police station, but in the past they had helped us many times, and they knew us personally, and not all the police at that time were Nazis. We went up to the couple police that we knew, and we asked them for help, and they said, "We can't help you. First of all the people outside, they're not just citizens. They're Gestapo. They're wearing civilian clothes because Hitler wanted everybody to think these were civilians, but most of them weren't." And he said also, "We have strict instructions not to leave the police station," because they didn't want the police to help even the Jews. Everything was a production. My brother said our only chance to survive is to take the car and go up to the mountains. There's mountains surrounding Munich. To go to the village on the other side of the mountains. The problem was, every time we'd go down a main street, there were checkpoints. And they'd check for Jews in buses and cars, check everybody for their... And I felt we went down another street trying to go down another road. There was no way to leave the city. I felt like we were rats in a maze, maze like that. And it seemed like we were doomed. Now all of a sudden I had this idea. I noticed that they were checking all the cars and buses, but they weren't checking, there were a few pedestrians, walkers, and they were able to walk through. There were very few of them. The police didn't bother with them because you can't walk to the mountains, it was too far away. So I thought of an idea. I called my good friend Carl. He was Christian, but he was a very close friend of mine. And I thought he would help us. And then he agreed when he heard my plan. What he did was he took his car, and being a Christian, there was no problem. He passed the checkpoint. He parked his car on the other side of the checkpoint. We took, the three of us went into our car, parked it before the checkpoint in the city. Of course, we told each other exactly where the cars were. And then the three of us, my brother, my father, and myself, walked nonchalantly past the checkpoint, not together. And I was so thankful that we were able to go past. And we got into the car, started no problem. It was getting very dark then, it was nighttime. And we knew the direction to the mountains. The problem was the coast was not clear. Just before the mountains, there was one last checkpoint. The Gestapo were not stupid. And my brother tried to avoid him. He went down a side road. But after like 2 minutes, we heard sirens and a police car. The two Gestapo agents came out. They had guns, of course. And my brother said to us, "Let me handle it. Let me do all the talking." They came over to the window. "Where do you think you're going?" My brother said, "We're going back over the mountains because we finished a couple days working in Munich. We have to go back to our families." Because we lived in a German neighborhood, all the years, all of us spoke the German with a German accent, not like a Yiddish or Jewish or Russian accent. So that was to our help. Then the policeman said, "Are you Jews?" And we just, and then he said, "Show me your hands." Put the hands like this. My hands were shaking. "Turn them over on the other side." Then the chief police officer said to his friend, You wanted to shoot them. Look at them. Look at their hands. Their hands are all cut up. They're dirty. These aren't Jews. Jews don't do any physical labor." We did. We were one of the rare families that did, fortunately. It saved our lives because then he turned us, he apologized, and he says, have a safe trip over the mountains. That was what was known the night of the crystals. And we were lucky, but hundreds were not. They were sent to concentration camps. It was the first time that Hitler organized all his forces to do violence against Jews wherever, just because they were Jews. They burnt down many temple synagogues. They burnt down Jewish schools. It was a nightmare. From this point on, Jews realized there was no future whatsoever in Germany, not only in Munich. It was all out Germany. And an interesting fact is, Hitler was surprised by the reaction of our Christian neighbors. There were some people were shocked to see it, but most of them were too afraid, practically all of them, were too afraid to speak out to demonstrate anything. You could sort of understand that. But this influenced him a couple years later when somebody proposed the final solution. He felt certain that the German citizens would not come to the aid of their Jewish neighbors. And unfortunately, he was right. The last part of my story is it's different because it was very personal. I woke up a morning, this was about 6-7 months later. And in between time, my older brother Bernard was trying to get us out, trying to find a visa to different countries. Every country was closing their door, including the United States. They were letting very few Jews in, if any at all. We were very pressured to try to get out because it seemed only one way. And we knew it wasn't good. Not everybody knew about the concentration camps. like my brother always hoped it would be getting better. He couldn't believe that they'd do something serious to us. But one morning, July 27th, I woke up, it was sunny, I didn't have any work to do that day. I decided I'd take my motorbike into the city to visit friends. I went in and by chance, I passed by the Jewish Community Center. And I thought, wait a minute, I heard rumors that they might allow some Jews into Australia. So I thought it's worth the chance. I got off the bike, ran up the flight of stairs, and I went to a clerk that I knew was dealing with that subject. Just as I was walking by, I hear a voice behind calling out, "Leonard?" I turned around and I see the president of the whole community center. First of all, I was surprised that he knew me. Second of all, I didn't know why he wanted to call me. He said, "Come here, come here." He says, it's true that like a couple months ago we had a meeting with several Jews and you said you were interested in leaving the country even on a minute's notice? I said, yeah. He said, well, the opportunity has arisen. Only a few minutes ago I spoke to the president of the Jewish Community Center in Berlin, the capital of Germany. And one of their people cannot make it. There's a plane leaving this afternoon and a ship leaving tomorrow from Italy. There's one spot available only. He said, you have to agree right now if you want to go, because otherwise I'm going to try to find somebody else. I said, no, but do I have like a half an hour to say goodbye to my family? He said, okay. Took the motorbike. I don't know what was going faster, my blood or the motorbike. I zipped home as fast as I could. My brother was the only one at home. As soon as he heard what I had to say, he said, go, leave, go away, go ahead. I'll bring your suitcase, I'll bring it to the airport. I'll wait for you there. I went back to the community center, and after I told him yes, the president gave me the main secretary there, Miss Goldstein, his aide, that she would accompany me, because I couldn't just get on the plane. We had to go to the police station to get permission to leave the country. We had to go to the Italian consul to get permission to be in the country one day for just transmit. I didn't think we'd be able to make it. But with Miss Goldstein, we went to the police station. The chief in charge was on holiday, and his subordinate didn't really want to help us. He said, it sounds okay, but come back Monday. We said, no, it's one deal. We finally convinced him. So he sent us on. We were able to get it. Then a taxi was waiting for us outside. Meanwhile, I was looking, there was only 2.5 hours left before the plane took off. We went to the Italian consul, and if you know how Italians, at least they used to be, it's like, take it easy, tomorrow. We got to the consul, not the main one, the second person in charge, and he too said, yeah, okay, we'll give you the visa, but today it's already closed. The visa section's closed. You have to wait till next week. I was already practically in tears. My Miss Goldstein was in tears. She was really emotional. She went over to the consul, and she looked him in the face, and she was pleading with him with tears coming down. Fortunately, it was human. And he said, listen, I have one idea what I could do. In another 15 minutes, I'm going to have lunch with the main consul. I'll explain your situation, I'll ask for permission. You wait in my office and wait by the phone. I said, okay. We waited by the phone, it seemed like forever. I felt like it was a couple hours. I think it was about 20 minutes actually. The phone rang. He said, you got it. You got the visa. We wanted to celebrate, but we didn't have the time. It was like only an hour, and it took us, we sped to the airport, like the last stage, and I took the little baggage I had, and then when I came in, I saw my brother came with my suitcase. The last step was to go through the customs control, which were policemen. And one of the first questions they asked me, are you taking any money out of the country? Because there was a big crime then because of the inflation in Germany. I said, no. And he said, okay. He starts giving you one stamp. He said, one last thing. He said, went over to the side room. And he said, strip, because he wanted to make sure that I didn't have anything on me. As I took off my pants, 2 marks, the equivalent of maybe $10 today, coins fell out of my pocket. They looked at me and said, you say you don't have any money at all? I said, I forgot about it. He said, you know, we can arrest you for that? And I said, no. And they were starting to look into the bureaucracy of arresting me. And I said, could I talk to my brother meanwhile? My brother was right outside, came in. And he went over to the police officer. He said, we're very sorry. Couldn't we pay a fine? Could we give you even more money? You know, a little on the side. And they consulted with themselves, between themselves. And at the end, they said, okay. They gave him a heavy fine, which he paid, and which he promised to pay more later. And he said, okay, go on. Pack the suitcase, go on. I only had time to hug my brother goodbye. I ran for the airplane. It was a little airplane. It turned out the airplane was waiting for me. And I could see in the distance my family, my father, mother, 2 sisters, and a couple friends on the other side. You know how they have it with departures and arrivals. I could see them, and they could see me. And all I was able to do was wave goodbye. I ran for the plane. I boarded the plane. I was exhausted. I looked out the plane's window. I imagined, at the time I thought I really saw their profiles, but I don't think that's possible. And as soon as I sat on the plane, I was exhausted and I fell asleep. But I woke up just as the plane was going over the clouds and I saw the sun. And for me it was like a new day, a new beginning. And even though I was, of course, worried about my friends and family, I thought, wow. And I got the ship, and it turned out they didn't take us to Australia. They took us to a refugee center in China. And I was there for 8 years. Some of it wasn't like a concentration camp, but there was time, about 4 years, it was decent living because the Chinese were in control. But after 4 years later, the Japanese took control, and they were allies with the Germans. And while they weren't Nazis, they were very harsh. And it was bad times. And I just want to end by telling you that eventually I got to the United States because we had cousins who had sent us a ticket. And I think my life has been very good, but every once in a while I can't help but thinking, why me? And what luck I had. You know, just everything fell into place. It's if the council didn't give me the approval, if Miss Goldstein didn't help me, if I didn't take my motorbike that same morning to go into, I probably would never have had the chance to leave. And I think, what about that person who was supposed to leave and I took his place? I have no idea. But I never can stop asking me the question, why me? I just want to find, I'm his son, Michael. I don't know if you figured it out, but I'm, even as old as I am, I'm too young to have gone through that. He went through it, and I want to tell you that he also, everything that I said, 90% it was written by him exactly. I changed it a little bit. But everything I said, he wrote diaries. And he wrote letters. And I also want to say that is everything he went through, he turned out, he arrived in the United States in 1947. In 1948, I was born. He was lucky that he met my mother. And even though he was plagued by what he went through, he had a rage that he kept inside, and every once in a while it'd explode on us. But we knew that he loved us. And he was such a romantic individual. He loved people. He had customers that were from Germany, non-Jewish. And only when they said something really anti-Semitic, he would just leave the house. And then he'd come back home and he would be very angry and tell us his story. But he had such love for people and animals. If there was a fly in the house, he would catch the fly and release it outside. The only word we weren't able to say in the house besides swear words was the word hate. And I had a good life because he was my father. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Ken?
What happened to your family?
Good question, yeah. I hesitated about telling you because that, unfortunately, I want people, I even have a website, I want people to realize that the ones who went through the Holocaust, they weren't just numbers and they weren't just victims, they also had their own life. This is my aunt, my father's sister, Isabel. She, together with her parents and my uncle, Bernard, went on trains. The Nazis forced them trains toward the end of 1941. In other words, about 2 years after my father left. And about 1,000 Jews. They had a train leaving every day for about a month. And they didn't get to the concentration camp because the concentration camp in Lithuania was too booked. So what the Nazis had them do, they had them dig their own graves, and they shot them. This is all documented by the Nazis themselves. They were very, and we know exactly the date and where it was. There's a memorial. This is Susie. You remember the girl who? She had a slightly better life because she had, before the war, she married a very nice, gentle Catholic man who loved her, truly loved her. And after the Nazis took control, they wouldn't be able to get married, but they leave them alone. And they fled to a certain part in Munich, and they were hiding my father and my uncle for a certain time. And she survived the war. But about 2 years later, and she had 5 children. 2 years later, she died, and they say it wasn't because of age or disease. She just had a broken heart because practically her whole family was killed. And I won't go into detail, but she had 5 children, and 3 of them are still living today, roughly my age, a little bit older. And I had contact with them. I visited them in Munich after 50 years of not knowing where they're living, and they visited me in Israel, but that's another story.